Hi, in this video tutorial, we'll be looking at how to use a mask to apply an effect to just part of a layer instead of the entire movie that's playing on it. So if we're starting from a new project, the first thing I'm going to do is load in my media files. So going into the Finder, you'll see I've got two different versions of each of these. I've got them encoded in HAP and in another format. So I'm going to drag in just the HAP encoded versions. And there are two clips here. There's robes and then there's a masks version of them. So just to preview them, one of them looks like this. This is what we want our output to look like. And these clips are from the Rockwell lab. They're doing a projection mapping project. And you'll notice that these are on their side. They're basically going to be rotating their projector so that they can get a lot of vertical resolution instead of horizontal resolution. And in the other clip, we have just a mask where the robes of the Buddha are. So in order to get this to work, what we're going to do is make a second layer, and I'm going to call this my mask layer, and I'm going to hide it because I don't want it to actually show up in my main output. And then I'm going to use my media bin, and I'm going to trigger the mask on there. Now I'm going to quickly just make some preview windows so we can see what's happening on each of these layers. So if I look at layer 1 before any effects are applied, it looks like this. If I look at layer 1 after effects are applied, it currently looks exactly the same. And if I look at what my mask is, since it's not showing in the actual output right now, the mask just looks like this. It's this black and white image. So the next thing I'm going to do is go back to my layer and open up the effects into its own window and apply the layer mask effect, which is under color effect. So here it is, layer mask. And for the mask image, I'm going to select my mask layer. So now you'll see that in my post effects preview window, I have just the part of my original image that shows through is where the mask is. So now, if I turn off the option to replace so that this effect doesn't get released, and now I can add an effect such as, say, maybe a hue adjust, and I'll make it so that this hue adjust is before my mask is applied. And now if I change the color, it applies only to where the robes are. And I can make that animated. I can have this use, say, the position of my movie so that this changes over the course of the movie. Here I'll open up layer source into its own window so you can see that as the movie goes from beginning to end, it goes through exactly one cycle of the hue. And one other thing I'm going to do along these lines is that I've got this masking movie that's playing back on another layer right now. And I'm going to pause that, and I want it to actually line up exactly with the playhead from the other movie. So what I'll do here is right-click on this slider now that it's paused. And same thing as with the hue shift itself. Switch that to use the normalized time. So now that this mask lines up perfectly with the source movie itself. Now the last thing we have to do is actually add on behind layer 1 the original image. So instead of having a movie playing back, I'm going to use the option in VDMX to use a layer as the source for another layer. So I'm going to pick layer 1 before effects as a layer that appears behind layer 1. So I'll call this my movie layer. And then this is going to be the background. And the background is just going to be the same image, but you'll see that this is actually getting a little bit blown out right now because it's using an additive blend mode. If I go into the workspace inspector here, I'll move these out of the way. So the robes are actually very bright right now, and that's because this is using OpenGL additive blend mode. But if I switch it to using the overblend mode, now this top layer actually just appears in front of. You can see that it's not getting all blown out now, it's just that part. And where we have the crown, it stays gold, and the robes change color. We could have also done this the opposite way. We could take the background effects layer and move the hue adjust over to there. So now everything except for the robes changes color. We've got the crown and the armbands slowly change color, but the robes stay the same. So you can do this either way, or you could apply different sets of effects to each layer. So the background, for example, we could just make it so that it does a hue adjust, but in a fixed amount, or using a different data source, or you could apply a totally different effect altogether. You can apply maybe a blur so that the robes, well, that looks kind of ugly, but you can do pretty much whatever you want there, and this technique could be used in a variety of different ways. Another trick that you can do is if you don't have a mask that's already generated that lines up perfectly, you can do something like use one of our built-in Quartz Composer sources. And here I'll use the radial gradient example. I'll trigger that onto a layer. And that's what's playing on my mask now. So you can see that there's this big white dot here. And just where that white dot is where it shows through. And with this effect, you can adjust how big that radius is. So I can make it so that it's very small, and only this small section in the middle there is affected by the hue shift. So that's a nice little handy trick that you can do just in case you have a clip that you want to do this trick with, but you don't have an exact matching up masking movie itself. So thanks again to the Rockwell group for providing this example clip that lines up perfectly. I think they used After Effects to make this, and they just exported one of the layers where the robes were as its own layer and in black and white mode. So thanks for watching this tutorial, and we'll hope to see you again next time. Bye.